Nigeria's external reserves hit 47.9 billion US dollars. SEC extends forbearance window to September 2018. Plus, World Bank Group endorses ambitious package to fight poverty. This is Business Express. I am Amina Nujaim saying welcome. In the news today, Governor of the Central Bank of Nigeria, CBN, Godwin Emefiele, has disclosed that the country's foreign reserves has hit 47.9 billion US dollars. He stated this at a joint press briefing with the Minister of Finance at the end of the 2018 IMF World Bank meeting in Washington, D.C., United States. The governor assured that concerted efforts were ongoing to realize the 80% target for financial inclusion, noting that the growth rate of 2.5% had been projected by the IMF and World Bank for Nigeria. Minister of Finance Kemi Adeosun has expressed optimism on the federal government's sustenance of the growth trajectory. Calling for vigilance, she explained that more than $322 million Abacha loot recovered has been earmarked for the National Social Safety Net program of the federal government. And now to the capital market. The Securities and Exchange Commission (SEC) has announced an extension of forbearance window for investors with multiple accounts and subscription to September 2018. Acting Director General SEC Mrs. Mary Uduk stated this at the first 2018 Post-Capital Market Committee press briefing in Lagos. The forbearance is to enable those who bought shares in multiple names to consolidate such multiple shareholders' identities with the registrars and Central Securities Clearing System into one that bears their official names. The Acting Director General therefore called on the affected investors to take advantage of the forbearance window to ratify their accounts. Now, in other developments, the acting DG SEC disclosed that retail players in domestic capital market have witnessed 5 billion naira in sukuk bond issuance by the federal government. The amount represents 5% of 100 billion naira bond with 7-year tenor for fixing 25 key economic road projects across the 6 geopolitical zones, with 16.6 billion naira earmarked for road projects in each geopolitical zones. Nigerians in the United States of America have put in place a credit union to fund investment that would enhance the country's development. The union was inaugurated by Sanusi Lamido Sanusi, Emir of Kano, at the first U.S.-Nigeria Investment Summit in Washington, D.C.
The Nigerian government has been keen on building a globally competitive economy with the much-needed resources and infrastructure to back it up after it emerged from a recession over a year ago. It is said that 1 in every 4 black persons is a Nigerian, and a large proportion of them are spread across the globe. Making Nigeria conducive for business is a necessity for the diaspora gathered here to rub minds with investors from other nations. The first ever summit did not get the expected takeoff.
We need to just look at those kinds of things that investors look at and have a very honest conversation, sector by sector, region by region, state by state. What do we need to do to make those areas attractive?
So the credit union is meant to harness the resources of the diasporans and will apply it in a better way than doing it individually.
This is the time for us to invest in our country, because there is nowhere today that you can invest and make money like our own country.
The Economic Recovery and Growth Plan, ERGP, is gaining global support, and the summit availed Nigerian institutions with the opportunity to source for investors for the ambitious target, which aims to diversify the economy and create more opportunities for growth.
We have stabilized our political space, and we think we can build on that for greater good of our people and the world in general. So this is the time for people to look the way of Africa and the way of Nigeria, so that jointly we can make meaningful contributions to us.
Majorly, we are looking at the area of technology transfer, as the number of farmers that are being covered by Bank of Agriculture increases. There's need for us to automate our process. We are also looking at variety of inputs.
They're talking about pragmatic issues. They're not getting preoccupied with complaints or policy issues, and they're looking at B2B, business to business, and B2G, business to government transactions. So I find that this one is much more effective and robust than the typical Africa or Nigeria business conference.
Because most of the youth, it's not that they don't have something to do. Yet they have something to do, but they need support. How do you support them?
The summit is tagged Nigeria is open for business, and the Nigerian Embassy in Washington intends to make it an annual investment event.
Many thanks, Leah. Now, the National Population Commission says Nigeria's population is growing annually at 6.5% and recently has increased to 198 million, making it the 7th most populous country in the world. Musa Abubakar in this background report examines the prospects of Nigeria's young population.
Population is said to form one of the fundamental building blocks of sustainable development along with resource management. Nigeria is home to Africa's biggest population. Records indicate that Nigeria's population have witnessed tremendous growth from 158.6 million in 2010 to 186 million in 2016. At an estimated population of 198 million, what is worthy of note is that countries such as China, United States are reaping the diverse benefit of the persistent investment in human capital development. This, Nigeria must take advantage of.
Well, I'm now being joined by Ofem Obama, an economic analyst, to discuss the economic prospects of Nigeria's population. Welcome to the program.
Thank you very much.
Now, Nigeria is a developing nation and has a huge population. So let's talk about the significance of population to any nation's economic development.
Yeah, population growth has a significant impact on the economy. Most so when you look at the kind of population that actually impacts in the economy. The Nigerian population is strictly divided into various groups, looking at the age brackets. Now you see between the ages of 15 to 59, you discover that's the working population of the economy. And if you look at it, it constitutes about 55% or 53% of the population.
So let's talk about that 55%.
Yes.
You said they are the young population, and they make a huge chunk of the proportion. So let's talk about their impact on any nation's economy.
Yeah, that is a productive group.
Yes.
That actually producing the goods and services that is used by a nation. So their outputs is a big impact on the economy, positively, when it is actually utilized. But in our situation, we have that kind of population constitute about 104 million if you attach it to the recently declared figures. So, and that population, strictly most of them are really underemployed. You understand? A lot of them are unemployed at all. And then when you look at that huge population that is supposed to be impacting the economy, only very few.
So how then do we make sure that those who are not engaged productively are engaged?
That is why the government must come up with deliberate policies. Policies to create jobs, policies to create more more capacity to use these people, to use this labor, I mean this workforce. Now, you see, in Nigeria, it is difficult for you to now just jumpstart these policies. They must take time to develop, to yield the required results. But positively looking at it, we may like to do a kind of policy shift. For instance, in agriculture, if you want to deploy this population to achieve food sufficiency, for instance, we must now begin to look at policy. Maybe NYSC, policy on NYSC should have a paradigm shift. Maybe by now we should not be thinking about having corpers to come out to go and be deployed in offices and all that. We should begin to look at policy that makes corpers probably deploy them to agri extensions, agri sites, where they can now use mechanized agriculture to produce food. Then we might achieve food sufficiency in that regard.
Well, what comes to mind here is the government's diversification agenda. Yes. Aside agriculture, what other aspects do you think that the youth can be actively engaged to make them productive and eventually in the long run grow their economy?
Okay, for instance, infrastructure development is very, very key to the development of the economy. Road construction, the engineers, young people that can be deployed. So government should increase investment in infrastructural development. That way, these youths that are roaming the streets will find their ways into these companies that are constructing these facilities or creating this infrastructure. So youths will be gainfully engaged, and that way they will impact positively on the economy. But for now, we having this problem of a lot of infrastructural needs that are not being attended to. We have to invest in education too. Education must also be looked at. You have to bring out quality education in the system. This way, youths that are going to be trained, they are going to be making meaningful impact in the economy.
Now, countries like China and India are emerging economies, and they have a huge population, and Nigeria is now in the list of the largest population countries. What lessons do you see us taking away from such countries?
Yeah, you see, their method of education is quite fulfilling because they educate to meet their needs. So for us as a country, we must begin to think of building skills around the youths, skills that can impact positively. You see, in China, for instance, every room is a factory. In the day, the night, it becomes a room where you sleep. And these young people turn these rooms in the morning, in the day, for factories. They begin to produce little things that they send to this part of the world. I will begin to buy them. IT tools, minor production equipment, or very little finished goods like that they send to this part of the world. So we must begin to deliberately move our policies to think that way so that we'll be able to engage these youths. Nigerian youths are very productive when they are engaged positively. But if they are not engaged positively, they will be roaming about, and that is why there's crime rate very high. The crime rate is very high because these youths have the energy to do other things which would have been productive. But because they are not engaged positively, they begin to think of other things to do.
Now, talking about engaging the youths positively, what areas of strength should government focus on?
Yes, I've talked about agriculture before. I've also talked about now the Bank of Industry must be able to expose themselves to where these youths can access facilities available. The SME package at CBN is also a laudable one that youth should also engage themselves in using those facilities to begin to generate income for themselves and also create employment for others. It is very, very key when you have a vibrant youth and you engage them in many productive activities like the SMEs. All the agencies that are involved in promoting SMEs, they should engage the youth positively. They should make sure they come out to enlighten the youth to make the packages available, be exposed to the youth so that they can take advantage of it and remain involved. And you see another area is that you see the IDPs. There are a lot of youths that have been displaced, and they are all there. So the NGOs should now be looking at those angles to see how they build capacities around or engage those youths that are now roaming the IDPs.
Let me come in here. Nigeria's dependency ratio is over 80%. Do you see that as a problem?
Of course, it's a huge problem, because if you look at our trends are saying that the gainfully engaged Nigerians in the country, there are just about 8-something million, compared to the population of about 190 million. Now, this population are actually the population that is actually sustaining the dependency rates. Right. The dependency population, which is not good enough. So unless that numbers begin to increase from that age, and that means you begin to engage people, people must have gainful employment to be able to take care of the dependent population. Otherwise, the pressure will be too much, and it impacts on various areas, corruption and other aspects of the economy.
Obama, many thanks for joining us on Business Express today.
Thank you very much.
It's been a pleasure talking to you.
My pleasure too. Thank you.
Now, moving on, let's take a look at a graphic summary of global markets. World Bank Group's shareholders have endorsed an ambitious package of measures that include a $13 billion paid-in capital increase, a series of internal reforms, and a set of policy measures that can strengthen the global poverty-fighting institutions. The packages agreed by the development committees of the Board of Governors consist $7.5 billion paid in capital for International Bank for Reconstruction and Development, IBRD, and $5.5 billion paid in capital for International Finance Corporation, IFC, as well as $52.6 billion callable capital increase for IBRD. The World Bank Group is poised to assist all client countries in addressing global challenges while deploying scaled-up assistance to areas that most need financing. Shareholders reiterated commitment to ending poverty and boosting shared prosperity. The federal government says the international community is supportive of steps it's taken to ensure the realization of the objectives of Nigeria's Economic and Growth Plan, ERGP. The Minister of Budget and National Planning, Senator Udoma, at the spring meeting in Washington, D.C. also disclosed that the 2018 budget will soon be passed. Leah Katung-Babatunde tells us more in this report.
More than a year since the Economic Recovery and Growth Plan, ERGP, was launched, Nigeria's medium-term plan that aims to drive holistic national development. With 2 years before the end of its targeted lifespan, Minister of Budget and National Planning, Udoma is confident Nigeria will attain 7% growth by the year 2020. With the focus labs ongoing, the minister said the results will be made public in the next 2 weeks, a good signal to some investors whom he said had met with the government's delegation at the spring meetings and have expressed interest in the country's agriculture and transportation sectors.
One, there's a lot of interest in Nigeria. Two, there's a lot of support for Nigeria. Three, they acknowledge the positive developments that are going on, and they acknowledge that we're on the right track. We just need to accelerate a bit on some of our measures.
With the second quarter on the way, the Director General Budget Office of the Federation, Ben Akabuizi, says steps are being taken to reduce high level of recurrent expenditure with a deliberate effort not to shrink the workforce.
At this time, that's not an option that government is looking at to sack personnel or and therefore the focus is on more now on containing other costs of government, non-personnel costs of government, and shoring up the revenues.
The Budget and Planning Ministry is working with the Finance Ministry to cut costs and boost revenue to run the economy, and the spring meetings is a channel through which the government is seeking investors for the critical sectors.
Leah Katumba Batunde there. The Nigerian stock market enjoyed a mixed result last week. Let's join Muplang Dakok for a review.
A total of 3.008 billion shares worth 30.296 billion naira in 24,036 deals were traded last week by investors on the floor of the exchange. The NSE All Share Index and market capitalization lost 0.28% to close the week at 40,814.89 basis points and 14.743 trillion naira. The activity chart measured by volume was led by the financial services industry, which recorded 2.539 billion shares valued at 23.510 billion naira in the week. The oil and gas industry was next on the chart with 273.443 million shares worth 2.358 billion naira. The third place was occupied by the consumer goods industry with a turnover of 60.840 million shares worth 2.654 billion naira. Trading in the top three equities, FCMB, UBA and Owando accounted for 1.8 billion shares valued at 9.5 billion naira. Owando, Jais Bank and Sky Bank led top 10 prize gainers in the week, while AG Leventis Nigeria, 11 PLC and Mutual Benefits Assurance PLC topped the losers table. Also traded during the week were 177,144 units of exchange-traded products ETPs, valued at 2.809 million naira in 6 deals, and 13,735 units of federal government bonds, valued at 14.128 million naira in 16 deals.
Many thanks, Muplang. I'm now being joined by Kola Oyedokun, who is with DSU Brokerage Services. It's always a pleasure having you on the program.
Yeah, good afternoon. How are you?
Let's talk about what happened. How would you analyze activities on the stock market last week?
Well, last week was a mixed feeling, but overall, I think the market did not perform very well. Because if you look at the overall gain in the last week, I think it's about 0.02 or thereabouts. Okay. Because there were so many days where the market was negative. You understand? I mean, the ocean index was negative. In fact, probably a few stocks that gained was because maybe they just released results and people felt they could take advantage of the dividend or whatever. Okay. Then for Owando, because of the lifting of the technical suspension, it moved from, I think, about 6 naira to 9 naira 50 kobo before it came down. Although you know what happened, and then some hairs.
Okay, let's now go to Washington.
We don't want to go to detail anyway.
Let's now talk about the positive outlook predicted by the IMF and World Bank in Washington, D.C. Do you see that affecting stocks?
I guess so, because if you look at the Nigeria market now, the market has really gone down very well. Like we all know now, in January alone, the market gained about 16.95%. But as of today, now the gain year to date is just about 6.72 or thereabouts. You see that we've lost close to 10% between January and today. And but you know, if you look at the foreign participation, you find out that the thing has been going down. That's what so many of us don't look at. Towards the end of the last quarter, last year, there is a lot of foreign inflow and a lot of foreign participation. But as from December, January and February, if you look at the outflow, exceeded the inflow. So that means though they came in, but by January, February, they have already cashed out. And you know, the domestic market may not be able to take up what those people offloaded. And that's why you see that from January, or let me say from February, the market has been going down. But now, I still believe that there is hope anyway, because if you look at the price of oil now, it has been going up, maybe about $75 per barrel.
What do you see us expecting this week?
I guess this week should be a bit better than last week.
Okay. Kola Oyedekun of Brokerage Services, thank you for joining us on Business Express today.
You're welcome, Amino. Thank you very much.
Now we take a look at commodities in the global markets. And that's a wrap on Monday's edition of Business Express. Wednesday is another day. I am Amina Nujain. Thanks for watching.